there's much that we can control, and my field of resilience psychology encourages people to work out what they can control and focus your attention on that. But this is not hardening up and being bulletproof, Actually, it's at the same time having that vulnerability and self-compassion to go to bed and hide under the duvet when you need to.
Yeah, I think a lot of people misinterpret what resilience means, don't they? They think you have to be strong or put on a brave face, but it's quite the opposite, which we'll get into more. I really want to hear more on the topic of resilience. But there's something that you said in an interview that I listened to and I loved, and you said, don't lose what you have to what you've lost. And that struck a real chord with me, because when my mum died suddenly from suicide, I had a 9-month-old baby, and I just remember feeling like there is absolutely no way I'm ever going to recover from this. I'm never going to be able to be a good mum for my daughter. It was so dark because I was very, very close with my mum, and it was very out of the blue. And I did, you do have a choice in those moments. I had to show up for her. I had to make that decision. I'm not going to let her not have a mum. She deserves to have a mum and have a happy life. So yeah, in those moments, you do have to actively make that choice to,
And it's not easy, is it?
No.
I think that's where people get misconstrue resilience, particularly resilient grieving, that they think that what I'm saying is harden up, get out of bed and get on with it, fake the positivity and you'll be fine. And that couldn't be further from the truth, because what we're saying is that we know that when people are operating out of a resilient mindset, they have this really kind of pragmatic approach. They know the size of the challenge that is facing them, and in no way do they diminish it. Just as you have said, wow, what a terrible time you had when you lost your mum and you had your wee baby. But actually, over time, what also happens is they have this optimism and belief that somehow they're going to get through it. And they do what it takes in tiny little moments of the day of getting up. One of our clients once said to us, she'd tidy the teaspoon drawer, and that was the thing that got her out of bed. And I like that because it speaks to the tininess of, you do one thing, you put one foot in front of the other. And I remember feeling like every day felt like a mountain. Yeah. And every day we would climb that bloody mountain, and the next day you'd be back at the bottom again. But I was absolutely determined to not lose what I have to what I had lost. I had the boys, I had my husband, I had really valuable work that I loved doing. I wanted to make a contribution to this field. And so those things enabled me to claw my way back. But I never wanted to diminish that it was hard. It's really hard grieving, and it doesn't go away.
It is really...
you can live and grieve at the same time, but it is blooming hard.
It's bloody hard. And you're right, it does feel like an absolute mountain that you're constantly feel like you're just sliding back down to the foot. So it's a very good analogy, and I love that you were determined to climb to the top. So tell us, because this is the title of your brilliant TED Talk as well, what are the 3 things for anyone listening who wants to cultivate more resilience? What are the 3 things that can really help?
Okay, so let's just start by saying these are not the only 3 things.
And it's not a magic bullet, is it?
No, and it's such a TED Talk-like thing, isn't it, that of course they whittled it down into kind of just 3 secrets of resilient people. Because actually one of the standout findings of resilience research is that you've got to find what works for you. So, and that particularly, of course, is relevant for grief, that everybody is different. We all grieve differently. Every relationship in grief is different. But what I would say is, you guys know this, that there are universal experiences amongst this difference. And so the field of resilience psychology has taught me the importance of these 3 things. And so I'll go through them, and then I want to say a bit more about them. Firstly, that to understand that struggle and suffering happen to us all. They are sadly part of everyone's life. Adversity doesn't discriminate. However awful it is, tough times come to us all. And if you know that in your bones, it stops you from feeling discriminated against when something goes wrong. And that is why it's so important. It's also really important in this era that we live in, where we have this tendency towards perfectionism, and perfectionism is toxic for our psychological health. So I think that's why understanding that setbacks, struggle, suffering is really happens to everyone is really important for us all. The second is that when we look at all of the literature about resilient psychology, we see that the people who manage to do well, come what may, are people who are able to somehow focus their attention on the stuff that they can change and somehow accept the stuff that they can't. They don't get dragged into that negativity bias whereby they only see what is awful, wrong, lost in their lives. And so this is not, again, about toxic positivity. This is about just redressing the balance and understanding that even when you're navigating your darkest days, there is still good in your world, and training your brain, your heart, your head to notice the good stuff that is still there. So, whether it is that someone's cooked you a meal, someone's mowing the lawn, you've got someone to have a hug, or someone's just remembered their name that day and said it to you, whatever it is, just noticing that there's still good going on in your life so that you don't get completely sucked into that fight, flight, freeze, negativity bias, all of that, because of course that happens. But positive emotions and positive experiences have been shown by studies to be really important for our grief process. And they're really common in grief. So if you experience a good moment, don't quash it. That is your body.
Or feel guilty for it.
Feel exactly that. So much guilt. Recently, I've just written a piece about grief and guilt. And the third helps the first two by teaching you to ask yourself, is what I'm doing, the way I'm choosing to think, act, or be right now, helping or harming me in my quest to get through this, survive this loss, relearn to live in the world, maintain that relationship that's so important and is driving me nuts, whatever it is. I think the really powerful thing about this question is its flexibility. And it allows you to personalize and grow your self-awareness about what is working for you. So I think that's the real beauty of it. I get communication from people all over the world all the time, as I'm sure you both do too. But the number one thing that people write to me about is this helping or harming you tactic, and they love it. And people use it in such different ways. I always laugh and say, the fifth glass of wine on a Thursday night, is that helping or harming you in your quest to get up on Friday? But, in grief, it's a really potent question, trawling through their photos, whatever it is it helping or harming you?